And for people watching this who might be interested in referring to the actual books themselves, volume 3, you get quite a few headings with helpful suggestions where he actually does that. He gives you these ideas of where the chords might be useful.
Oh,
So
cool. I
this,
don't have volume three.
oh, it's downloadable on Modern Guitar Harmony. You can get a copy
Oh,
today.
okay. I gotta get that.
It's in the resources section. It hasn't got
Yeah.
this cover on, but it's everything from that point.
Oh, good.
And honestly, volume 3 is like the Advancing Guitarists volumes 2 to 10.
Okay.
Being so
Yes.
enthusiastic, it's got page numbers. There's much more detail. It's not on the crazy colored paper, which I miss.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think the colored paper at first is the shock value when you unpack it. I couldn't believe what
Yeah.
had arrived in the post. It turned up in 2008, and I've read it every week since, I think.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I'm so
Somehow I miss
enthusiastic
I
about it.
I missed that.
Oh, you'll love it. I'm so pleased to be able to
Yeah.
share something in your direction. So
Cool.
yes, you're talking about exactly what pops up in volume 3. He goes chromatic. He shows alternative cycles, alternative voicing progressions. Um, there's an awful lot of finger pointing in the right direction or in different directions,
Hmm.
whereas Almanacs 1 and 2 set out the extent of the possibilities of the three key scales he chooses, the melodic, harmonic, and major.
Hmm.
Um, there's strange things happening in the harmonic and melodic minors with the different intervals, especially the harmonic with that augmented second. I don't know if you might
Yeah,
comment
and you
on
get
that
that in
because that's a
the
trouble area.
harmonic. You get that in the harmonic major scale too.
Yeah.
Does he go into that in volume three?
He shows things. He doesn't so much talk about them as show them. And there are some
Yeah.
lovely musical examples of what he called grip slipping. I
Huh.
don't know if you've seen that, where he takes a voicing and runs it through a whole tone scale. I think I've got, yeah, that's in tune. So it'll be root position, third inversion, second inversion, first inversion, root position, third, second, first, root. So
Cool.
that's just whole tone major seventh chords,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
It sounds
so
so
much.
out, doesn't it?
Yeah, so much. I missed the second last one, but you get
That's
the idea.
gorgeous.
And
Yeah.
that's set out with minor seven flat fives, dominant sevenths, major sevenths, minor sevenths.
Yeah.
And then there's a quiz section, which you might enjoy for a holiday break. It's better than crossword puzzles.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
The
good.
quiz section is called Analyze This, and he just gives you the material, but it is out there.
Uh-huh.
And it is mixed kind of gig material, perhaps,
Yeah.
and changes that he might surprise people with, but it's
Hmm.
based on everything that's gone before. And he gives you the answers jumbled up.
Yeah. You had mentioned Falling Grace in our
Yeah.
email communication, and yeah, we had lunch one time when he was in the process of he was kind of considering and had started the idea of doing an entire book about that song, um, and I guess we don't know what happened to that.
No, it's mystery. I've got a
Yeah.
theory about the 55. Do you think that might be Steve Swallow's initials? 55 variations, 5 5. It just seems to be his kind of game playing.
Could be. I don't know.
Maybe, I don't know.
But in the recording that I sent you from that radio show,
Yeah.
he does an introduction unaccompanied on Falling Grace.
Hmm. Yes.
And we played that tune a lot.
Mm.
There's a nice version of it on the Confluence album, and
Yes.
you know, really was his favorite tune.
I can see
And
why.
but if you check out his harmonic mayhem, I mean that in the best way too.
Yeah. I remember a G
It's
in the middle of it, the G major. He often raises the fifth in that, and that's just a small example, but
oh sure,
it's
he would
such a
love to do
beautiful
that.
detail. Yeah.
Yeah, he
Far more.
loved. Oh, he always loved doing that.
Yeah.
And but that introduction that he did, I think was the furthest out harmonically that I ever heard him take that tune.
Mm.
So I think
Yeah.
that's a good example. If you want to hear him reharmonize a tune,
Yeah.
just listen to that.
Yeah. I think
It's
there's a version
frightening.
with Tim Miller on the YouTube channel. And I think Mick's playing the baritone again on that, or a pedal, putting him in baritone tuning. Unless Tim is on the baritone. I don't remember.
I don't think Tim played. I don't think Mick played baritone with Tim, but I might be wrong.
Okay, it sounds like one of them's got a serious detuning done, but
Could
it might
be.
just be one string for
Yeah, I
that
don't
tune.
know. I'll
So
have to check
I'll have
that
to look
out.
closer at that. I'm curious.
Yeah.
It's about 15 minutes on Falling Grace. You can see they're both having a great time.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I think that was probably for the release of the GMC book that they did. That was
Uh-huh.
the concert they did in
Yeah.
Boston for that. Yeah, but
Interesting.
it's a phenomenal piece of writing. I mean, Steve Swallow talks about it in some very interesting ways. He wrote it on George Russell's piano,
Oh, I didn't know that.
which is fascinating.
Didn't he
He
write it
says
when he was a student?
he was staying at George Russell's house or visiting George Russell,
Uh-huh.
and he says he thinks the tune was intended for George, and he happened to be at George's piano, and it arrived.
Oh, that's really interesting.
It's quite a fascinating thought, you know.
Hmm.
So it's a beautiful tune. It really is. There's some good lyrics to it. I've had students sing it before.
Oh, really?
Lyrics about
I'm
snow.
usually not such a fan of of lyrics written to
Yeah,
instrumental jazz tunes after the fact. But
it's better than the average jazz lyric in that sense. I think
good.
it's a more meaningful lyric about snow falling. It's very beautiful.
Oh, good.
So it's not just about chord changes and melody notes, which some of the
Okay, so
songs
it
are.
has the imagery of falling in it. That's great.
Yeah, yeah.
Huh.
And of course, every melodic phrase seems to go down
Yes.
softly, like snow falling. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, it really is. And the chord changes are so great to play over.
So while we're talking, and this is going to be on a web page, presumably, if anyone knows where the Falling Grace manuscript is, please get in touch because it would be brilliant if someone knew and we could get it one of these days.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what's happened, and it's a mystery. Obviously, there's people been asking questions about it. It was trailed in the back of this. It's actually got an advert for it. It tells you
Oh,
what's in
really?
it and everything.
Oh,
So it says forthcoming attractions, I'm sure.
oh, wow.
I think it's on the back page.
But I assume you've been in touch with David Lee about it.
David's also looking. Yeah, David's
Yeah,
talking
because
about
if
it.
anyone's going
It's
to find it, it would be him.
yeah, but it says a book entirely based on Steve's composition, Falling Grace, bass
Hmm.
lines, melodies, duets, harmonizations, reharmonizations, odd meter renderings, etc.
Yeah.
So it's ready for print according to this.
Huh.
And it was back in 2008, 2009.
Well, that's a treasure that must be unearthed.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a big book fan, as you might be able to tell, and there's
I
a
can
lovely
see.
book called The Book of Lost Books.
Mm.
And I'll take pleasure in crossing that one out of my index in that book. There's plenty of other books. He's in good company with the
Hmm.
greats, but it would be good to cross that one off
Yeah,
and
that should
actually
be
see what's in it.
fascinating. Yeah.
I've got another thought. Maybe we could even source a group project where we all contribute a little bit to our own versions of it as a kind of replacement copy or a
That would
parallel
be fun.
copy. I like that idea of a group work
That's a great
if
idea.
possible. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But yeah, the talking about the almanacs as a chord um, resource, it's a cornucopia of ideas. There is so much there. Um, I don't really know what I would advise as a 101. We've got the cycles we've talked about. We've got the voicings we've talked about. Um,
Well, and
this,
then of course, volume two goes into the harmony all built on fourths,
yeah,
and that is very interesting. There are tremendous possibilities in there. Some of the fingerings are some are downright impossible,
mhm,
uh, and if you practice those, some of those fingerings, Mick actually puts a caveat in the introduction to the volume one where he says, be careful. Some of these stretches are very extreme, and if you are practicing these things and getting really involved with them, make sure you don't overdo it because you could hurt yourself literally. You know. But the idea of the harmony built on fourths, it it I mean, the difficulty with the almanacs is how do you get those things into your playing? What do you
mhm.
do with them? Um, and I think, Mick's point and the way he would explain everything that he taught really is don't worry about that. Just create with it, first of all, get a handle on it, get some comfort with it, and then just see where it leads you. And, one thing that I've found is that we can find, for instance, very specific little moves. You might do something, you're going through a certain one of the cycles, maybe with a certain voicing, and then you hear one particular little move in there that you really like. And that's the thing to do. Focus on the things you love. When you find something that intrigues you, then think, well, maybe I could use that in a tune, If you're doing, say, fourths on some melodic minor scale, well, of course, C melodic minor could be B seventh altered, couldn't it?
Yep. Yep.
So you find some nice little move in there and you say, oh, well, how's that sound resolving to E major?
Mm-hmm.
And so you make a little thing happen, resolve it to E major, and think, okay, that's great. Let's use that in a tune. When I've got a 5/7 where I want altered, maybe I'll use that little thing on it.
Yeah.
And that way you found something and actually made application of it in the real world of music in real time.
Yeah.
And I think that's that kind of thing of kind of gently going through the material and noticing things about it that really catch your interest, things that you love, a sound that just makes you feel good. Just try to use it somewhere.
Yeah.
And all kinds of nice things can creep into your playing that way. I think it's a healthy and kind of pleasantly unpressured way of using the material, I think, and there's so much of it. There's no way you're going to get all of it available to you. That's ridiculous.
Except for Ben Monder.
Yeah, well, I
Ben Monder
guess.
might be getting close, I think.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. But I think you're dead right about this. One of the areas I found most productive with the modal side of it, both the major and the minor modes, the Superlocrian mode version from the melodic minor that you're talking about, where you take a C melodic minor and play B.
Well, yeah, let's call it altered dominant.
Altered, that's better, yeah, sure.
I
It's
think of
this English vocabulary.
I think of a Locrian scale with a little cape flying around, right?
That's right, that's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. And then you've got the mode 5 of the harmonic minor scale. I think it's often called the Spanish dominant,
Or Phrygian
Phrygian
dominant. The
dominant.
Shredder's,
Yeah.
that's the Shredder's favorite scale.
Yeah. There's a beautiful
Look at,
John Renbourn tune where he uses it exclusively called
oh yeah,
Palermo Snow.
oh yeah. There's been a lot of
Yeah,
popular music in all kinds of genres with that
yeah,
scale.
yeah.
And
But the modes of the minors are fascinating, rich, and unmined areas. There's a lot of scope for new development there for students and for people
same with
wanting
the
something.
harmonic major scale. The harmonic major gives us like an altered scale with a natural 5,
That's
for
right.
instance.
That's right.
Beautiful. It gives us a Lydian with a flat 3.
Yeah,
And that ends up being, and that's how I first learned the scale. George Russell, in his Lydian chromatic concept,
yeah,
calls that scale Lydian diminished. And you can see it as a diminished thing. If you think of 1 flat 3 sharp 4 6, that's a diminished 7th chord.
yeah.
And it's a beautiful scale on a diminished chord.
Mhm.
Try playing the tune My Romance. Goes B flat major, C minor, D minor, D flat diminished, then
Okay,
C minor, F7, B flat.
I'll
Typical
check that out.
progression, right? On that D flat diminished, play the Lydian minor from the key of B flat.
On the
Absolutely
B flat
beautiful.
diminished.
B flat Lydian minor,
Yeah,
but do that on the D flat diminished. It's part of the same, B
yeah,
flat, D flat, E, and G diminished are all the same, right? And but if you take that's a tonic diminished. The D flat is from the diminished series of the key
yeah.
of B flat in this case. And in one of those applications, you play that Lydian minor scale from the root of the key. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, yeah.
I should probably show you. if I'm playing that's the progression. When I go here, when I get to here,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
you know, really nice.
Like a
So for the
crooked
harmonic,
staircase in a good way.
pardon me?
It's like a crooked staircase in a good way.
Kind of, yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
something catches your ear immediately.
yeah.
That
And
would be a neck turn as soon as I heard someone do that.
mm,
Yeah.
but yeah, harmonic major, I would encourage everyone to really get into that, and it's something that is not included in Mick's books 1 and 2, and if someone were to take his approach and do all of that with a harmonic major scale, uh, that'd be cool.
Yeah. Of course, just for people who are using the pages, it's easy enough to read the page and read A flat instead of A on your major
Sure.
scales.
Yeah, yeah,
So that's a very quick way of taking a major scale. I'm on the melodic minors there. And just every time you see A play A flat, you've got the harmonic major.
that's right.
So I remember when Ebersold was starting his books well, beginning his series in the 80s, they didn't even have a name for that scale at that point.
Uh-huh.
There was a kind of question mark next to it, but they wrote the notes down because they knew it was cool.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
interesting.
I think it has appeared in music for a long time,
Names
hasn't it?
change. I did a little bit of research on the harmonic minor scale and melodic minor scale naming, and they don't seem to go back much beyond the 20th century with the names.
Really?
It's very
Because they
strange.
certainly were
The
used a
scales are
lot.
there. Of course they are
Yeah,
in 19th century, but they
I
seem
didn't
to
know
have,
that.
they're kind of very, so they have protean qualities. They move in and out of one another, and it's a very muddled and odd history. I suspect it might be us who are giving those labels, the teachers, the people who are doing the teaching.
Yeah, it's nice to have language we can communicate with each other.
Exactly. It's the language we have to use to actually get things done.
Yeah, but
It's
these scales have appeared in Indian music, Indian
yeah,
classical music
yeah.
for like 1,000 years. So,
Yeah, and you see Yusef Lateef's book, he's actually collected them together. It's wonderful.
oh, I haven't seen that.
The what's it called? The repository of melodic scales and patterns.
Really?
I think I can put my hand straight on it. It's that one.
Wow, I didn't know
It's
about
superb,
that.
and this is where this picture came from. It was the famous Coltrane picture,
Uh-huh.
and that was Coltrane's Cycle of Fifths
Yeah.
in Yusef Lateef's book. It's still available, I think.
Huh.
It's hugely worth looking at. He's got scales from all over the world, from Chow etudes from the Chow dynasty, 1122 BC, Egyptian scales, Hungarian scales, and then all of the Slominski style divisions of the octave with the crazy
Yeah,
names.
right. Right, the
So this is a
mathematical
kind of jazz
progression.
Slominski, if you like,
Uh-huh.
and seriously worth checking out again. It's an absolute
I've
masterpiece.
got I've got Slaninsky here, actually. I got that one.
Oh yes, that's the Slominski. Yeah, sure.
It's the new one. Yeah, I lost my old one.
That's the copy I've got. One of my
Yeah.
colleagues was trying to apply DNA patterns with the ABCT
Oh my God.
or whatever it is to that. He
Oh
got
my,
into all sorts of knots.
wow.
But it's not a million mile away. Mick's calling the melodic strand idea as musical DNA, and
Mm-hmm.
it is so fascinating that the way things seem to just arrive by sequencing, unpicking and unpacking these
Mm-hmm.
ideas. And you're quite right about all of that.
And the
The
trick is
fourth,
to turn all of this into music that really is heartfelt and communicative.
yeah, yeah,
And that's the thing. I think that, and that's where being creative with these things is so important. If you take a scale and just meditatively create with it, get into its sound, get into its feeling, and that means every individual mode of that scale, spending time with each one, and really getting a feeling for the emotional aspect of it, the coloristic aspect of it, what kinds of feelings you get from it, and just what kinds of imagery you might associate with it. Because that's the point. I mean, to have a lot of interesting technical material is one thing, but to turn that into music that is emotionally evocative and communicates, that's of course the really important thing. And that's why we have to spend time being very creative with these things, getting into our own creative space with them and exploring them from that angle. Not, technically first, because that shows you what the notes are, but then it needs to become emotional and coloristic and evocative.
I'll try a question on you. I haven't made a list of questions for this chat. It seems to be flowing very naturally. Um, you said the uses of the almanacs. Now, when we look at the cycles, we're all automatically inclined towards cycle of fourths, cycle of fifths, chord progressions, and it seems to have that steering towards functional harmony. Yet I found that if you work with modal music and work with the fourth voicings in particular, the clusters, the all of the stranger corners of it, we can produce some non-functional harmony from the almanacs too. I don't know if you can say anything about that.
Well, I think, I mean, maybe what you're referring to is the idea of a sound as a color
Hmm.
rather than as a function.
Yes.
And there are a lot of course, many jazz standards are very functional. They have two fives, they have modulation, they have deceptive resolution, they have all those kinds of things that really grew from Western European classical music. The idea of the dominant to tonic relationship and the major scale harmony kind of being king. And but of course, there's a whole other way of composing music, and that is to just use a chord perhaps as a color. Um, there's a tune, beautiful tune written by Gary Anderson, which I think is a really nice example of this. It's called Beneath It All, and it's in the first real book. Gary Anderson was a faculty member at Berklee, tenor sax player, and the tune is like this. It starts on an A flat Lydian, goes to G minor, back to A flat, goes to C diminished major 7, to E flat Lydian, into D major, then to B flat Lydian, A7 sharp 9, B flat Lydian, C Lydian, D flat Lydian. That's where it ends. Then it goes back to A flat Lydian. Well, how do you analyze that?
I'll write to you.
Here's the changes.
Henry Martin could.
All right?
That's beautiful.
Yeah, but you can't analyze that
Mm.
other than to say, well, this sounds good. That sounds good. This sounds good.
Yeah.
Uh, this sounds amazing. Into here. It just,
Yeah.
it's the way the colors flow one to another.
We're
And
very close to falling grace there.
yeah, but
But
there's two fives in Falling
yeah,
Grace too.
far more two fives in falling grace, you're right.
Yeah, and I think another great tune, there's no way I'm going to play this for you, but tune by Joe Henderson called Inner Urge,
Yes, I know it.
which Joe Henderson was a great bridge between the hard bop and the modal.
Mm-hmm.
And you hear a hard bop kind of melody against a totally modal set
Yeah,
of chord changes. He
yeah.
starts on like an F sharp minor 7 flat 5 chord, and it just sits there. melodies like, and it goes, then it goes to F major, E flat major, D flat major, and so forth. It's just modal, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
And again, it's the kind of thing where it's one really nice color after another.
yeah,
And he wrote a bebop kind of melody on top of
yeah,
it.
yeah,
And you know, you can analyze the melody in a certain way, but again, the chords. It's not tonal. It doesn't relate to Western classical music at all,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it's more like uh, color after color,
yeah, yeah.
and that's a wonderful way to write music.
You're giving me so much food for thought. I hope this is helping other people. Um, I'll just expand on that statement you've made. It's almost as if something like Inner Urge or Beneath It All, they're already a reharmonization.
That's yeah. I'm not sure of what.
Yeah, yeah. Who knows?
Yeah,
A contrafact, perhaps, but maybe not.
yeah.
Or something simpler. And this is what I get from the almanacs with the non-functional side, is that you can elaborate and build some pretty exciting constructions from a basic static harmony. It doesn't need to
Well,
be a harmonic gravity, or a tonal
true,
gravity, really.
true, true.
Yeah.
And I think it's good to be aware of when we're in a modal area and when we're in a tonal area.
Hmm. Hmm.
And of course, they can combine beautifully,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
we have to be careful not to confuse them.
yeah. A friend of
And
mine points that out on Kind of Blue, that Nat Adderley, sorry, Cannonball's playing two fives on modal tunes often.
yeah,
Beautiful
well,
way,
of course, that on Kind of Blue, that was just a paradigm shift of a
of
major
course.
sort,
Yeah.
where you know that was very new for them,
Mm,
and so of course there's going to be
yeah.
cross pollination,
Yeah.
but but we have to realize that you know modal music has been around a lot longer than tonal music.
Yes.
And I think people take for granted it's easy to feel that the major scale and the 251 and the 451, all of that is kind of the essence of all music for all time, and that's really not
No.
true at all.
Mhm.
That's a relatively late development in the history of music.
Yeah.
And you know, we look to Africa, India, Greece, Morocco, and we see modal music for thousands of years.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the idea of modal music, I think, is the tonal center. We have a tonal center. We have various ingredients that are all heard with respect to that tonal center, and that produces a very different kind of musical direction, a very different musical environment than the Western classical tradition. And the two can be very compatible
Hmm.
and could go very nicely together, but I think it's important to make the distinction
Yeah. Yeah. I
and to
like.
acknowledge how important modal music is in terms of the development of all music and how it's just so old.
Yeah. 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 I couldn't agree more with you about that. And I think one thing that we haven't used the word yet, but your playing exemplifies it. And your recent piece, Cobalt Blue, would certainly link into that with the color and the use, the very beautiful video that you supplied with it. But there's something that struck me immediately. I heard that track was the timbre of the guitar, your actual tonal color that you're producing as well.
Well, there's two guitars on that I play on that.
Yes, you play the
The
the,
acoustic
the
guitar,
National as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, which I love. I love that
It's a
thing.
beautiful sound it is. It's rare to hear it in that context.
Yeah, it's funny now. Chris Gill, the artist on that, is a high school friend, actually from middle school. I've known him. Still hang out a lot, and
Brilliant.
he his artwork is really exploding. He's had some wonderful gallery showings and is producing. He's producing really big pieces now. They're
Yeah,
just amazing.
yeah.
And he's cool. He came into art late in life. He's a psychotherapist by
Ah,
profession, semi-retired at this
yeah.
point, and started really with his art only about maybe 10, 12 years ago. And it's just consumed him, and it's so cool to see this second life of his, you know. So we had a great time doing that.
Oh, brilliant. You're making an exemplary sound on the Telecaster too, or the Telecaster type.
Um,
I think, was it a
our
Tele or was,
SG, wasn't it?
excuse me, it was, yeah, SG, of
Yeah,
course it
yeah.
was, yeah. Are
This,
you using a P90 on it?
yeah, this is
Yeah.
my, I think the one on that was my other one. This is actually a 1961,
Ah, yeah,
and my other's a 67. And yeah, I love the P90s.
yeah.
I've loved SGs for many years.
I've played a 330 with a P90 in it since the 1980s.
Yeah,
Similar tone. It's just got that
well, like
responsive
I
dynamic.
had one. That's same as the Epiphone Casino. I had one of those, and
Yeah, that's the one.
yeah, they're great.
Yeah, yeah. So what I would relate that back to the almanacs again, I find that I can get the timbre of those voicings on some of the pages different on different instruments. So if I played on an acoustic guitar, it's going to feel different to an electric.
Oh, very much.
The exploring those pages, it's no mistake, it's no accident that there are no page numbers. It's a labyrinth to go into every
Yeah,
time.
actually, you know, that's an interesting point too, because some of the chord voicings, I think someone might play one of those chord voicings and just say to themselves, you know, that's just downright ugly.
Mhm, mhm.
And some of like you know, a third inversion augmented major seven chord,
Yeah,
for instance, is pretty gnarly sound.
yeah.
And I think I would caution someone to uh, not use a sound if you don't love it.
Hmm.
And I think sometimes when we get into a theoretical labyrinth, that's a great word for this.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I think sometimes we can tend to use things just because we were told that they work.
Hmm. Hmm.
But the question is, do they work for us as individuals?
Yeah.
And I think some of the chord voicings that are in there that are strange, it takes a while to make them work. And what that stems from, I think, is getting it to sound good to you. It might not sound good to you right away, in which case I would say probably don't use it on stage
Hmm.
or in a recording. But stay with it. Give it some time. Eventually, you might be able to make that chord sound good. And if it sounds good to you, my feeling is it'll sound good to the listener.
Yeah.
If it doesn't sound good to you, if you don't hear it and love it, probably no one else will.
Hmm.
So I think that's an important point. We can come up with some really strange stuff, and we have to make sure that we get it to a point where it really sounds good and feels good to us. And that can involve a lot of really subtle things. The way you play a chord voicing, just the way you hit it, the way you attack the strings. Um, you know, I mean, I've heard a case where someone can make a chord voicing sound really good, someone else can't.
Yeah.
And what is that intangible that's going on in there? Well, somehow the person who makes it sound good has found a way to make it sound good to them. And I think it's, you know, it's important to make those kinds of judgments. And but don't close your mind to it. You might not like it this week, but maybe next month you'll love it.
And for orchestration, arranging, if it's a film music scene and you want a particularly ugly sound, you know where it is.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And
Well, I
the
did a lot of
expression,
scoring.
yeah,
Yeah, I did a lot of TV scoring for, geez, about 20 years, and
yeah,
I found my knowledge of all kinds of different weird stuff was so useful,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I had opportunities to use all of it over
yes,
the years,
yeah.
and that's one of the great things about writing to picture. You have opportunities to do interesting musical things that you might not do on the bandstand.
Yeah, yeah. We played a modern jazz club a few years ago, a so-called modern jazz club. I'll not name check it when it's on the film here. I might edit this bit. We got called out for playing a monk tune. We played Epistrophe, and it was beyond the pale.
Really,
Playing Epistrophe was too dissonant, too strange.
they couldn't tolerate it, huh?
It was they wanted Ellington, but not with flat fives and
I
things like
see.
that.
Yeah,
You know,
you know.
so it's peculiar. It's people's taste and the reaction. It was,
Oh, it's true. Some music requires a little bit of effort, a little
yeah,
challenge,
yeah, yeah.
to listen to.
Easy listening and difficult listening.
Yeah. And
But just to wrap up, we've been talking for an hour. I don't want to take your time up, and I don't want to wear you out at all. The right hand you're using, it looks quite similar to the way I play, yet I'm a left-handed writer.
huh.
I know Mick was as well. Um, I saw a guy in France a few years ago called Christian Sagesse, and he had the most sophisticated right hand technique to draw out the middle voices of chords, where he
Uh-huh.
was almost equalizing the volume at will on his middle finger, ring finger, index
Oh,
finger.
sure.
And
Yeah,
this is what you're saying about a chord sounding good for some people
exactly.
and different to others.
Yes. Yeah. And the right hand and the left hand can have a
Hmm.
lot to do with that too. It's just and it's biofeedback.
Yeah,
Basically,
yeah.
when we do something, we want a positive result, and we'll make um, unconscious, very subtle changes to something until it makes us feel good.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that you have to let that process happen. And again, fits into Mick's teaching philosophy totally. You don't pressure yourself to do that. You just let it happen.
Yeah,
And I mean, improving, advancing as a musician has to be done not under pressure. It needs to be done in a delicate, creative, and fun way.
yeah.
You know, our job is to have fun. This is something I realized years ago. I was scoring a TV show and I was just having a blast. It was going really well. I had my themes. It was all working beautifully. And I sat and I thought, I'm being paid really well to have a lot of fun. And if I'm not having fun, I'm not doing my job properly.
Good
And
career advice.
yeah, it's a walk of life that we're blessed to be involved with, where
Yeah,
that's true. Not a lot of people can say that their
yeah,
job is to have fun.
yeah. Driving at 2 a.m. and getting the gear into difficult venues and back out again, and all of the administration and paperwork is what we're really paid for, I think.
Oh, yeah, I
Yeah,
guess, yeah.
yeah.
There is always that, yeah.
But I've spent the last few days writing this draft of 101 almanacs, and I'm enjoying writing it, and we're going to get this onto Modern Guitar Harmony. You've had a few chats with Marcel. He's on his annual holiday at the moment,
Hmm.
so he wishes us both well on what we're doing today. Um, And thank you so much for your time. It's absolutely brilliant to
Oh, well, thanks.
spend this
I'm
time with
delighted to have been asked to do this, and it's my privilege. I was with Mick 2 hours before he passed away,
you. Oh man,
and I feel it
not easy.
to be a wonderful thing to get his his beautiful way of looking at music out there.
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah.
very happy to be
Oh,
involved.
thank you so much. It really is appreciated that. And I'll turn the recording off now. We can chat a little bit to wrap up if you like. And I'll say
Okay.
thank you again to you. So,
All right.
okay.